Let's take a few moments to put a little context around the use of views. Within SharePoint, a view is used most of the time on a page. So here we have an example of a project homepage. First, we come into SharePoint and we know that we are within a site. Then we know the content that we're looking at is held within a specific page. Now, we know that on that page there are different lists and libraries. In this case, there's a project summary, which is showing a task list, and also a training web part that is showing the library. Within that library, we do not see every single piece of information that is available. However, what we do see is a view of that information. So here you can see, like in all things SharePoint, it's boxes within boxes, and that a view is just a piece of information that you as a power user have decided is most important for the users to quickly access on that page. Let's take a little look at how you build a view. The two different ways that you're able to display this specific set of metadata attributes are within a list, because the list itself has its own page, or, like we showed in the previous example, you're able to create a page and create a specific view for that page. Imagine if you wanted to have a page that was just for that one individual, but it showed all of their tasks and all of their documents. You could create views in both of those list and library that only showed the information that was assigned to that person. So now they basically have their own page. You've put views on that page to show them just what they need to see. While the examples I'm showing here and on the previous slide are standard list views, there are also calendar views, datasheet views, and when you're using a task list, people often use a Gantt chart. The really interesting thing about SharePoint is that any list or library that has a start date or an end date, or actually just one of those, you can create a calendar view. This is really powerful if you have deadlines and that you want to be able to see when and how many are due in the same week. You can just create a calendar view and be able to see how many of those proposals are due at the same time. The datasheet is now able to quickly cut and paste. This is great for easy access and for those who are familiar with Excel. The drawback to these views are that they can be edited at any time by anyone who has the correct permissions. So be careful. It's easy to use, but it's also easy to change. Finally, all of these views combined together or used individually can create a dashboard of information. Imagine that you have that task list and you have the amount of money that each task cost. Well, you could roll up that monetary amount and be able to quickly show people throughout the organization how much you're spending to perform that activity. Also, you might be able to base a view off of the status of an item. And so, as you walk through that process, different views show different statuses. So if you're working on a document, it shows in one place if it is a draft, it shows in another if it's in progress, and it shows yet in another view when it is final. And in each of these different views, it's possible to be able to show different pieces of metadata. Yet, the user experience is simple to upload documents and add those values into the columns without worrying about how it will show up on a page to display the process. Finally, you're already doing your work here. So there's no reason that you can't use that information to create a live report. Let's take a look at how we build these different types of views. Welcome back to the Power site. I've added some lists and libraries, but the home page isn't looking exactly how I want it to. I love the project summary, which is showing me a view into the task lists and the tasks that I had added, but the training document library just doesn't look exactly how I want it to. Here you can see that it's showing the out-of-the-box columns, name, modified, and modified by, even though I know that there's more information held within each one of these documents. Let's go into the document library itself and see what we can add. Like with anything else SharePoint, there's two ways to do anything, and editing views is no different. You can do it in two different places. The first is within the Library tab, or if you're in a list, within the List tab. Let's go check it out. Here you see a quick and easy button called Modified View. Let's not do that, and I'll show you the second place, which is right above the list or library, by clicking on the ellipses. Let's modify the view. Here you can see the list editing form. The first section is the name. You can either add a name, or in this case edit it, and you'll also see that a URL is created directly to this view. This again allows you to provide direct access to users to create a report or instant access to specific information. I know that there are more columns in here, so let's go into the second section, look at the different columns, choose and deselect them, and then finally what we'll do is we'll change the order. On this page, the ordering is a little strange. The actual columns themselves don't reorder, just the numbers do. So usually what I like to do is pick and deselect the columns that I want to use, press OK, and then come back again and reorder them. Let's do that here. I will deselect modified and modified by, and I'm going to add a few other columns. Editor, review draft, review final, status, training author. That should do it. Let's go back up to the top and press OK. Now I can see a lot more information than I had originally. This looks good, but I'd really like the status to be in front of everything, then the author and editor, and finally the dates. Let's go back to the ellipses and modify the view again. Now I can easily see the order and I can change it. Status will come after name, author, editor, review draft, review final. Perfect. That's great. But this view will take up too much room on the home page. So what I want to do is I want to create a view that is grouped. So now what I want to do is I can go back to those two same places and either create a view. Now you can see the different views that are available to be created. I can create a standard view, a calendar view, a datasheet view for quick access, or a Gantt view. In most document libraries, it's appropriate to do a standard view, and I'll push the envelope in a second and show you a calendar view. But right now I want to create a view called Grouped. So what I'll do is I'll select the All Documents view from the bottom, because I already know that's a standard view and it has the columns that I've already selected. I know that I'm going to only use this view on the home page, so I'm actually going to call this view Home Page. I've again not added spaces into this view name because it will automatically create the URL of this view. I can come back later and change it. On the home page, I don't need all of these columns, so let's just keep type, name, editor, and author. Remember that I said I wanted to group these, so let's take a look further down in the form and review the other options. You can sort any view, ascending or descending, by any of the columns. You also can sort by a secondary item. The interesting thing here is when you're using a group, the group will override the sorting, so you can just leave it as it is. Next, and really powerful thing that we won't go into here, is filtering. You can set a query to limit the information that is returned within the view. One of my favorite things to do is to enter in the filter me and assign it to, in this case, the author, and you'll have a view that only shows the specific items that are assigned to you. It's very powerful. Here, let's take a look at grouped by. SharePoint limits your groupings to 2 different levels. In this case, we only want to go 1 level deep, and we'll group by status. Ascending is fine. We're going to choose collapsed to not take up too much room. This will also sort of look like folders that you're used to in libraries. You could choose expanded. Also, you notice that if it's a really large list or library, SharePoint will provide you the limit of items or groups that you're allowed to show on one page. 30 is definitely enough here. We'll scroll to the bottom and press OK. Now you can see a nice clean view that can be added to the home page. Let's quickly add one other type of view, a calendar view, even for a document library. We'll use this later. What I want to do is I want to know when all my final drafts are due. So I'll call it Final Draft. I'll create a public view. As a power user, you're able to create either views for yourself or that everyone can see. In most cases, it's best to create public views because other people will also find this organization of information interesting. What I can do is I can select a beginning date and an end date, and in this case, it's going to be the same. Here now I have to choose the title. I'll actually choose the title. The calendar view allows you a month or a week or a day view out of the box, so that's why it's asking for information in these separate title columns. We'll stick with a month view out of the box. You'll notice that the same filter is available in a calendar as it is in the standard view. But let's just show everything for now. What I could do is I could select items that only have a specific status and show those. Now we can see on the calendar all of the items that we have for final review during this month. Here again, we can see that we have different controls for a calendar as if we were in a calendar list. Now I want to take you to the task list and show you different views that are available and more practical when using tasks. Within this specific task list, I know that some of these tasks have been assigned during a meeting process, and I want to know when were these items assigned. So what I'll do here is I'll create a new meeting view. You can see that when I start from the standard view, I only get the out-of-the-box columns. Let's go scroll down and select the columns that I'd like to have. Here what I'm also going to do is I'm going to use a different style to present the information in a different format. Let's go down to the Style section. Here you can see several selections. You can select a basic table, a box with no labels, boxed. Those are pretty interesting and not appropriate for the task list, but I definitely say you should play with it. But here what I want to do so that the description can be read across the whole screen is I want to use the newsletter. Let's select Newsletter and press OK. Now you can see that the information is formatted in a completely different way. Oh, you know what I forgot to do here? Is I forgot to group it by meetings. Let's go back in. It makes sense to have the newest meeting show up on top. Alright, now we have it grouped by meetings. Some of my tasks weren't assigned then. Let's take a look. Pretty neat. You can also see that the last item shows up underneath. Let's add a description and show how this would look with longer text. Now I've added the description, let's press save. Here you can see that the description is showing. Ah, I see these are actually out of order. Let's edit this view one more time. I want the description to be last. So I'll just click on a low number. Now that's more like it. So here we get the columns, completed, task name, due date, assigned, start date, but then the description is wrapped underneath. It's a very nice view. It can replace some type of meeting minutes or meeting agenda, and we'll show that later. Now, one last step. Let's go to the calendar and see what I can do. Here, there's a button that was made available in SharePoint 2010 called Calendars in View. What I'd like to do here is overlay the two calendars, one from the task list and one from the document library, to see what I have to do this month. Let's add the document library first. And it's very important, so let's put it as red. Now let's add the task. Choose the color. And what I'm doing is I'm selecting Resolve. You can resolve different calendars from sites all across your site collection. This can be pretty handy. Tasks, calendar, always show. Let's see what this looks like. Now I know all of the different deadlines across multiple lists that I have to do. And look, I can see it all in one single place on the calendar. Now I remember one more thing about tasks, that it has a lot of different views. Let's take a quick look. On top of the great timeline, the calendar, and the completed items, we also have a Gantt chart, which looks slightly like Microsoft Project, except it has some limitations of the amount of information that it can show in one sitting. Not too bad. Next, my favorite, My Tasks. And you can see here that compared to the 20 or so tasks that are on the task list, it's only showing me items in the Assigned To. Finally, some built-in ones are the late tasks. You can notice that SharePoint 2013 also shows the due date in red when it is late. And upcoming tasks shows you tasks that are due very close in the future. Now, one last thing, let's go look at the home page and put that view of the document library we created there. We're going to edit the page. Edit the document library web part. And select the view that we've already created. There the view is. A quick note, if you want to edit a view on a page, you click on Edit Current View. You get the same choices, except whatever changes you make will stay on the page until you change them again. Now you can see a simpler view of the training document library that I wanted from the beginning. That's a detailed introduction to how do you build views. If the standard lists and libraries built in SharePoint 2013 don't meet your needs to build a solution for your customers, there is another answer: building a custom list. Custom lists allow you to create your own set of metadata to support this specific business process. You can limit the amount of columns that are available and decide what you want to show and the views you want to create without having to go through existing ones. Also, another thing that a custom list lets you do is to treat SharePoint like a database and to build relational lists. What do I mean by this? Imagine that you wanted to assign a city, let's say Springfield, to a state. How would you do that? Well, maybe you would have a parent list that listed all of the different states that your item, the city, could be in. Now, SharePoint will let you have multiple items in a list called Springfield, but you'll know that they're assigned to different states. Let's go see how to create a custom list from scratch. There's another truth beyond just taxes in life, and that is that you have meetings. And I know that for working on trainings with my editors and authors, we hold a lot of meetings, and I'd like to be able to instantly access the agendas and meeting minutes of these meetings. I've looked through the different out-of-the-box SharePoint lists, and nothing really meets my needs. So what I'd like to do is be able to create a single list that allows me to see agendas and minutes in one place. So I'm going to go ahead and create a custom list with those views that I want. I'm going to call this Meeting Notes. Now we can add the different columns in several different ways. The easiest way to do this is to edit the list and use the plus button that pops up and add columns directly. I know if we're meeting that I need a date and time. I also know that I want a status, so I'll have to choose more columns. Notice that I'm using an underline to replace a space, and that way I won't have to go back and rename this column. I'll make it a choice, and my choices will be an agenda or minutes. SharePoint will automatically put the first line item as the default value. Next, I want to be able to actually record the text of the agenda or minutes, so I'll add 2 new text columns. Another way to do this is to go into the list and create a column. Finally, what I'd like to do is know who was attending that meeting, so I'll create an attendees column. Here, I want to allow multiple selections of people. That looks like it's about right. Let's stop adding this list and create a new item. Now I have the different columns that I've added, but wait, look at the agenda. When I added the text directly from the list, it defaulted as a single line of text. Let's add some dummy content here. Also, you'll notice that it automatically added the meeting column as a date and time, which is not what I wanted. Let's press save. Now what I want to do is go back into the list settings and change the values of the columns. I will change the meeting back to a date only, and I'll change the agenda into a multiple line of text. Alright, let's go back to meeting notes. The next thing I want to do is create 2 views of my information. First view is an agenda. What I'm going to do here is filter the information to only show the items that are marked by the status called agenda. Also, I don't want to show the meeting minutes, and there won't be any attendees when the agenda is coming out. So I'll filter by status is equal to agenda. Okay, that's the one item that I had as an agenda. The next thing I would like to do is create a new view called minutes. I know that I created the agenda list and it's pretty close to what I want for minutes, so I'm going to use that as a starting point. Instead of the agenda column, I'm going to deselect it and select the minutes column. And also change the filter. Let's add a new item that is set to minutes. Now you can see that the item that I just created as a minute is showing up in the minutes and not showing up in the agendas, and that both of them show up under all items. This solves my business need to centrally record the information about the meeting minutes in one place. I can easily search it, I can easily find it, and I can connect it to other lists based on that meeting column. That's a simple method to centralize work processes into SharePoint using custom lists.